To be honest with you, in between series, we work it hard on the bench. There was a couple things that happened early in that game, the first series, that they had given us that we hadn't seen on film. A little bit of surprise, pressure package, and we were dissecting that and making sure that the next series or whenever that was going to occur again, we would be ready to go and have the proper calls, and we did. Came back up twice, and we had really good protection. Otherwise, we'd have been in trouble with that. So we do that constantly on the bench. I'm always looking for information. I've been telling you guys for a long time now that I encourage feedback, input, and I think it brings us all together. It's healthy. It's like a marriage. I mean, you got to have it both. Both people have to voice their opinion and talk, and I believe it's healthy for we do that in our meeting room all the time.
Are you seeing more blitzes in games from defensive fronts this year? And if so, how do you think you're handling them?
I don't know that there's more blitzes. I thought early last year we saw a bunch, and then we kind of hurt people. I think, and then it kind of goes away a little bit. I think they're going to always test you to see if you can handle what they're giving you. Blitz packages, I think we got the greatest center in the world in terms of identifying and making the correct call and putting everybody in the right spot. But to be honest with you, it's the whole team. I hear Coach Peterson talk about this all the time. I mean, you got to run the correct route at the right depth, and you got to get shake man coverage, and the quarterback has to be on time, and the linemen have to firm the protection up and bump off games and twist stunts, and the back has to get up in there and block his man. So it's everybody involved, and that's why offensive football is so challenging. One guy makes a mistake, and there's a major problem.
Stout, can you talk about Washington, and as you study that front, what do you see?
I see a very, very stout, very physical, great against the run. They're giving up about 100 yards a game, a little bit more than that. I think they're 8th in the NFL. They're very, very good against the run. And then when you get them in third down, they've got multiple pressure packages with multiple twists and pop stunts and picking people and trying to, knock you off and then loop a guy around so that you can't. So it's going to be challenging. Our players, we got a little flavor of it today. I try to get them out of here. Before they get out of here, I want them to get a really good base and understand what we're getting into. But really good front. That's their strength of their team, is their front seven.
Ryan Kerrigan's always been really tough to deal with. What makes him so great?
Well, number one, I believe he's got a lot of talent. He's a very talented player, but he also plays extremely hard all the time. He's always hustling. He's always playing as hard as he can. He never lets up, and I think he's a great player. But
hey, Stout, you mentioned feedback and you encourage it. Doug says if you see something, say something. Is he a little bit different as far as coaches and encouraging feedback from his players?
I don't know, but I've talked about this last year. I spoke to a couple of you guys about this. I read a book years ago called It's Your Ship, and I mentioned it in that Sports Illustrated deal they did. And it really changed my life and how I go about coaching the player, and we have a lot of smart players here that have other ways of looking at things. And I don't want them just to sit there with their mouth shut. I want them to speak about their thought process, and sometimes they're right. Sometimes they open my eyes, and sometimes they don't. But the bottom line is, when we're done and we're finished up the day, we're all in it together. It brings everybody closer. It brings everybody tighter. Everybody's accountable. Everybody's a part of it. I think that's healthy.
Who speaks up the most?
They all have. Well, the center is always going to, have, especially when you're in protections and all. But they all have. Every one of the guys in that room, probably except for the younger guys that are just learning, they all suggest something. Every one of the veterans has something to say. They'll stop the meeting and say, Stout, let's talk about this for a minute. Do you think this could work? And then we stop. We take a minute or two, or 3, 5, and then we move on. We make a decision right there, we stamp it or not, and then we move on.
A game like the last one where it's kind of put on the offensive line, how big of a point of pride is that when you guys are consistently running the ball like that in the second half?
Well, we spend a lot of time here in our individual periods. You guys are out there, you see what we do in the beginning. We don't have a lot of individual time, but we do spend a lot of the early phase of practice surfacing blocks, and we don't ever stop doing that. The course of the season goes by. If you'll build rust and barnacles, and you won't be able to. Your game becomes sloppy. So we just consistently, we want to get 10,000 reps of these things. So it's like that, and I think that it's very helpful to the players, especially at the back end of the season. They can stay sharp with all that stuff. Surfacing a block is not an easy thing, believe me.
A few weeks ago, Kelce had some very thoughtful comments about why the team is struggling. I don't know if you saw them or not, but he was talking about just some of the little minor changes that happen over the course of an off season and how that could just kind of have a trickle-down effect. But my question more to you is about Kelce and his being able to kind of step back and look at things from kind of a certain vantage point, not only the experience, but I guess you talked before just about his intelligence. What is it about him that makes him so unique in that regard? What makes Jason so unique in terms of...
That's the question?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know about that other stuff because I don't really get involved in. I'm trying to figure out how to block these blitzes and where's the best run, and to me this is all distracting. So I really focus on what I need to do to help these guys be successful. That is the absolute number one thing. Actually, I preach this on a daily basis to our players. If you would just lock in for 4 seconds at a time and not be distracted, man, oh man, how much production you would get out of a group. And so anyway, to answer your question. To answer your question, I'm just saying to you, I don't really know. You started the question with a bunch of things about Kelce's this, and I don't really know what that is. But the uniqueness about Jason Kelce is that he's so passionate about the game and his teammates, and he cares so much about his teammates. He gets frustrated sometimes because he's a perfectionist. He wants things. And that's a good thing. I think that's a good thing. I think he loves his teammates, man. This guy loves his teammates. He's willing to do anything for his teammates. So I think that's what's unique about him. I don't think there's anything about that guy that's selfish. In the national football, and this guy is like giving it his all every day. He's banged up. You know, he just keeps. He doesn't ever want to have to be. I was on the bench during that the Saints game, and it was like they wouldn't let him go on the field. He was like, you know, they had to chain him up. He wanted to go back on the field to play with his buddies, but being able to taking the game away from him is like he wants to be out there. He wants to be playing. He wants to be contributing. So I think to me that's what makes him unique, and he's so smart and sees things visually. He sees things. He sees safety rotation. He's a quarterback playing center.
You've got three guys like that are playing banged up, and Jason with the injuries. He's got Lane on the other side and Jason in the middle. I mean, how impressed are you that they keep going out there? And
yeah, I think that first of all, if they're out there, there are no excuses. You're going to perform. You're going to play at a high level, and you're going to get the job done, and that's the mindset. So they're not looking for pity. They're not looking for anybody saying, "Hey, you're the greatest," because they just, if they can go and they can help us win, they're going to play, and they've done that. So.
Coach Peterson brought up on Monday. He emphasized how when there's a balanced attack, you guys have won, and in all 5 of your victories, there's been a balanced attack of run and pass. How much of an emphasis is there on that going forward the remainder of the regular season to have that balanced attack?
I think that's the purpose always, but I think Coach Peterson does a great job of calling the game based on what's happening and what's going on and what type of a box are they building, And for instance, the 4th down and 2, I mean, that defense totally committed to the run. They were ready to stop the run, and we threw a concept at him, and Nelson Aguilar was wide open in the middle of the field. So I mean, that was him seeing that with the play before. So I think that most importantly, I love to run the ball. We love to run the ball. You're an offensive lineman, you're a coach, but here's the number one thing: we want to be able to run the ball we want to be able to run the best play to the best defense. I can't stand running a play into the worst defense ever. That's not good. And I think getting out of that play, getting into something else, that's kind of the important thing right now.
We'll take a couple more questions.
When you guys have faced adversity this year, or things haven't gone your way, what do you notice about Doug's approach and his demeanor, the way he tries to kind of keep everyone pulling in the same direction during those times?
I told him I wish I could be more like him. I told him that. He's like that. He's the same guy, you know. There's never panic in his demeanor. He's the same person, the same coach, the same guy, and I admire that.
You called
Not that I'm kind of the same way too, but it's different than him. It's like, Full Metal Jacket 24/7, and I sometimes wish I could, whatever.
You just called Kelce a quarterback on the offensive line. Between him and Carson, that's a lot of football acumen between the two of them. I'm curious what you see behind the scenes that stands out, as those two work together during the week with communication and sharing ideas.
Well, they all do. There's other players involved there too. We have tomorrow morning. We'll have a meeting with the offensive line, the quarterbacks, and we'll dissect many of their pressures, and we'll talk through how we're going to protect them. And there's dialogue going on in that meeting with everybody. I run the meeting, and I'll introduce how we're going to do things, and then I'll say, anybody have anything to say? Are we all good? And then we'll go on a little bit. Somebody has, what about this? And it starts, and it's pretty neat.
A few moments ago, you said no excuses for when a guy's hurt, but do you ever marvel at what some of these guys are playing through or enduring out there?
Let's just say this: when the game's over and we're in the locker room, I make sure I get next to each guy, and they know how I feel.
How do you think your line's played this year?
Go ahead.
I think there's room for improvement. I think that the protection has been more firm. If you notice the pocket, okay. Look, some of those plays that we made, if you just look at the firmness of the pocket and how the tackles block the edges, the quarterback, that's a great world for him to be in. He sits in there and he's got this thing right in front of him, a horseshoe in front of him. And to me, there was one play, he made a nice throw, Carson did, and it was like, Kelce cleared out the inside for him. He had a nice vision of it. He had firmness in the protection, and that's important. I thought times last year we had some seepage and some push, and these guys on defense now, they're great players. They're running this way, and we're backing up. Okay, try that out. Want to try that out at the park over there?